Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Cryptoware, and today we are going to discuss about various obfuscation techniques. So basically it is more like deobfuscation technique. So there are around 6 files with me, and we are going to understand in this video how we are deobfuscating the samples and what should be our approach towards deobfuscating it, and how different forms of different ways of obfuscation techniques are followed by the malware authors. So as you can see that there are 6 files over here and all of them are different. So before that, I have mentioned about what obfuscation means. So basically it is a technique used by malware authors to make the sample a bit more challenging for the analysts to analyze. So either they'll encode it or they'll put a lot of gibberish stuff in between so that it gets very difficult for you to analyze. For example, here you can see that it is a VB script, and it is talking about using some exe. It has provided some base 64 encoding strings over here. So these are different ways how it happens. So for example, let's go here. You can see here they have not used any base 64 encoding, but they have used some other techniques of obfuscating. So you're not able to read or understand what the actual script is doing directly. So it's not like that you cannot do it. It's possible to a certain extent. So our goal is to not completely deobfuscate, but deobfuscate that specific part which is more important for us. Again, there could be tools which can deobfuscate, but they are very much specific to a specific malware family, or maybe specific to a specific file type. Also, again, there are packers. We are going to talk about packers later on, and we'll not cover it as of now. I mean, in this video. And we are going to have a series of videos where we will be deobfuscating the samples. So here I'll just give you an overview of what is happening, how is it happening, how you are actually deobfuscating, what will be the process that you can follow. I'll give you some examples like that, and then we will gradually uh, move on to analyzing these samples one by one. So let's get started. So let's start with this file, and let us gradually understand what is happening over here. So what do we see is that it says that it is VB script, dim binary. So dim is used for declaring variables in VB script. And even if you are not sure about it, we can actually Google, we can actually understand what is it doing. It's no harm Googling thing if you have no idea about it. This seems to be interesting. Most probably this is base 64. And yes, it is. So with time, when you'll be analyzing more and more files, it will get easier for you to understand what type of encoding is being used. So what we generally do over here is we'll copy, or maybe we'll try to, base 64 decode it to see what kind of file it is. So let's decode. I guess I missed it. So for now, since I'll be analyzing each of the file one by one in my upcoming videos, so let's just try with a simpler script, like, some part of it, just to understand if we are taking it correctly and whether we are doing it correctly or not. Okay, so you can use any tool, any application for base 64 decode. So this program cannot be run in DOS mode, MZ. So most probably this is a portable executable file. So it is an exe application. It of course says invalid input because we have not provided the entire input. So what we can understand that this must be an embedded file. It must be an exe file over here. dim code that it is supposed to run. So we'll be decoding it later on in our later videos, but we can see that how huge it is. Let's go down and see what else do we have. Okay, so it has used some other functions and another base 64. It looks like it is another base 64. Here you can see that here also in the function it is mentioned that it is base 64. System security dot cryptography from base 64 transform. So it is trying to decode most probably. And another thing that we are seeing that this is also base 64. So what we can see is what it is trying, that it will be concatenating all of them. So how it works is this S is being assigned to this specific string. Then again S and S, this new string is assigned with along with the previous string. So both of them look like this. This will be 1. So how we'll see, this also seems to be base 64. So this is the first string. After using AND, S becomes this, first two, concatenated together. This is how. In the third step, we see that this third part, this third section is also concatenated. It means it added. So this is how the entire strings are working. So we'll just take this part to see if we are right about whether it is base 64 or not. Yes, it is base 64 and it is also trying to run some code. So here we can see. So we are pretty sure that both of them are base 64 and it's quite simpler for us as of now because just base 64 is there. And they have used some other functions, some other declarations, some other things. We will get into this code later on. This is just the static part. We are not running the code, but we are just trying to deobfuscate. So this is one of the very simplest example. Let's move on and we see that it also looks like maybe it is also a VB script or maybe something else. Yes, it looks like VB script. Anyway, here we can see that it is using some reg write copy file. It is using wscript, create object, wscript.shell. So you can anyway, like, Google, what is it doing? We will anyway be analyzing what it is probably doing. But right now, just when you start analyzing any file, and especially when you have to deobfuscate the sample, this is how your approach can be. You may follow a different approach. A lot of people, they do is they directly run it, like they debug or deobfuscate. By the way, debug and deobfuscate both are different terms. They do not mean the same thing. What I'm trying to say is a lot of times people try to deobfuscate dynamically. Okay, so that is also another way. But here we are just trying to understand the static approach, because until and unless you understand how manually things are working, it's of no use working or using the tool. Because if any issue app happens, then it won't be possible for you to identify what's the issue or how can we resolve it. Also, we do have some other options, like if tool A is not working, we can move on to other tool. But anyway, the manual approach is something which stays with you. And as we say, the basic should be there, that you understand what is happening, how is anything happening. I extremely apologize if there is any background noise. So moving ahead, here we can see it has used CHR65. Okay. So most probably these are some ASCII values uh, whose character uh, transformation has to be done. So you can use any tool. There are Python tools. You can use online tools. You can use anything. It's totally up to you. Again, you have to be very clear of the fact that which kind of code you're using. So right now, since we are simply analyzing, I've taken all these codes from uh, the public platforms. But if it is something confidential, then you should not be using, in public platforms. What do I mean by confidential? What I mean is that you have been provided a sample from your customer, from your client, then you should not be using it in public domains. You will have to do it, you have to set up a local environment where you are doing it, either by yourself or the tools have been downloaded, which do not steal that data or something like that. So let's try. What does 65 mean? We'll just see. So 65 means A. What we can do is we can take all the numbers and see what is it coming to. We will simply remove and bracket. You can very easily do one thing, like what I would prefer doing is I'll copy them and I'll just replace this. So it got replaced. Let's see now what is it. Does it even mean anything, or it is just to confuse us? Because a lot of time obfuscated codes are such that they will they are kind of rabbit hole. So you are analyzing something, but there's no output or there's no conclusion out of it. So it is just there to waste your time. It is just there to delay your analysis. So that is the reason you have to be very careful about it as well. Again, with time, with experience, you will be able to do it. So it means attachments will go ahead. We'll see what else is there. So it looks like they have used variable names. So we might need to, replace the variable names with something else. We'll have to understand them. Like if this equal to Outlook, then this means this something. So what will happen is there may be some strings that have been broken. So when you go through these steps, when you follow these steps, you'll see some strings are being formed, some function names, some function names, or maybe some API calls, something which makes sense to you, that will get formed. Another way of identifying if it is malicious or not, that at most of the malicious files, obfuscate their code, and that is the first thing, like, which makes it extremely suspicious. Like, why are you obfuscating the code if it's not suspicious? Okay, there are other reasons also for obfuscating the file. There are valid reasons for that. But as of now, since we are analyzing malware and we have observed some activity, for example, then we can look into it. So we have to get into more details. So CHR is something that is used. Here we might have to change or rename the variables so that it gets very easier for us to understand what is happening. It is checking some address lists. Uh, it is creating something address entries. Hello there. No, kindly open the attachment. So we can guess maybe there is some attachment. Is it over here, or maybe it is downloading from somewhere? Since it is mentioning an attachment, so maybe there is something which is embedded over here. We are not sure. We will have to look, or whether it is getting created dynamically. So we are not sure, although the script looks small, but still we can have a look. We can always analyze what is happening over here. So we'll analyze this sample also in our upcoming videos. Let's move ahead with the next sample. So here what we can see, again, this is quite a small sample. It is HTML. So this is something randomly they have put it in comments. So here is the main code from where we can see that it is quite direct to understand what is happening. Here also some kind of encoding has happened. Again, char 58 UTF get string. Something has happened. It is trying to convert something from base 64 string. Here is our clue that it is base 64. So we'll again base 64 decode it. So we'll always go with the easiest one to do. Like which one looks more easy. For example, an obfuscated code always looks very gibberish. So the first thing that you would always try is to, clear the things. For example, in the previous sample, my approach would be to, clearing it up slightly. Like if there is set, I'll just put I'll press enter and I'll just see which ones are clearer, which ones are not clearer. Like here, I can see that there is some reg write that is happening. There is a usage of some variable. We'll see, okay, this variable has been used and this. So this is being used along with this. Then what does it mean? So this is linked with this. So this is how you go about. And when you follow this process or this, if the code in this way, it gets very easier and simpler for you to understand. So the first step is always to make it look less gibberish. So you go ahead with the easiest thing that looks, for example, again in the previous sample, we see that this cat thing is the easiest one for us to. So we went ahead and tried to see that what does it mean over here? So here again, we see base 64. So we'll try to base 64 decode it again. I mean, this sample basically. So we'll simply base 64 decode it and see what does it mean over here. So here we can see there's some command line argument. It's also pretty straightforward. Here, if you see find str tvnd, another thing that I would like to show you is just to put, into notice that the first sample that we were looking into, it also started with TV. Okay. It not always, it doesn't always have to be the same. It doesn't always mean the same, in fact. But with time, you understand or you can identify that this could be something that we need to look for. This could mean something. I'm not saying that you may or may not be right. You may or may not confirm that whether this specific function or this specific string is performing some malicious activity. But it's always better to go through it, see it, and with time, with experience, you'll be able to understand or identify that, yes, this could mean something. Let me have a look at it. So that's what we are going to do. That we'll just have a look at it. Like, does it mean anything? No, it says it's a invalid input. But again, it decodes something, MSC, MSCF. Maybe it means something or maybe it's just random, but worth trying. It's always worth trying. So here we can see some PowerShell code. Maybe it is that it is trying, it is using task kill, it is starting some process, it is trying to open something and keep it hidden. So we'll go through it. There are some other files that it is using. So there's always a chance that it is actually a loader. It is loading some other sample, some other exe file, because it does not look like downloading anything, but it is loading something. So moving ahead, we'll move on to this sample. Again, this is another sample which is very small and straightforward. So as I mentioned before, we will simply try to clean and make it a bit less gibberish as much as possible. Since this is a small piece of code, this could be possible for us to do. So we'll just simply do this. Var URL. Most of the times what happens that the variable names are not the same always. They are always very much gibberish. But a lot of times they are not that gibberish too, because they have encoded something else, and this is hex encoding. So we'll try to hex decode it. We are not going to do everything right now, but we'll just have a look. So again, we will check, as I had said, we will start with the easiest part so that it gets easier for us to analyze, to make it less gibberish. So I've replaced it. We'll replace this as well. Yes. So you can use any tool, whichever is more convenient to you. Again, you have to be very careful that whether you are using uh, like which tool you are using and for what kind of files. So you have to be very careful about it. So we are simply using online tools as we have downloaded the samples from the public platforms. So let's see, let's put it over here and see what does it mean. So you can see that it is some W script shell, all user profile, some smoking pump.exe. It has an HTTPS. I mean, it has a URL as well. So this way you can identify, okay, what is it trying to do? Maybe it is a downloader. Maybe it is downloading that file and then it is executing it as well. So that is how you identify. So this is the variable. This is then getting, its object is getting created over here. It's using try. So maybe it is, performing some error handling where it should be loaded. Maybe it is related to that. I'm not sure. We have not analyzed the sample yet. I'm just guessing. So you'll have to break it down into simpler form so that it gets easier for you to understand what is happening. Smaller scripts are easier to deobfuscate completely, but you have to understand that our goal is to not deobfuscate a sample entirely, but to that extent which will be useful for us so that we can identify what is happening, how is it happening. Another one, this is also pretty straightforward. Again, this is base 64 encoding. Here also we have base 64. So we can directly decode it and we can identify. I'm not going to do it anymore because we have seen some examples where we were base 64 decoding the things and we identified what it was doing. We will be doing in our next videos, in our upcoming videos. Let's go through it. Now, this is something which is extremely gibberish. It's really very difficult to understand what is happening over here and it will take some time. So let's just go through it. Let's see what is the easiest thing that we can observe. Like this is something quite easier. Like if you can see this. In fact, in my next videos also, I'll make it more visible. So here you can see it looks like it is using WinMG MTS Win32 process. It looks like it is using run dll.exe. We are just we are checking for the simplest thing that will be easier for us to understand. This looks like some Adobe stream. Let's scroll down and let's see. Here are some lots of variables. Again, they might be of no use or maybe they are of use. We have no clue about it, but definitely we'll check it out. So it's a very huge file. We'll just quickly scroll it down so that we can see if there is anything other than this. A lot of times these things are present to make it, more confusing for you. The more it looks gibberish, the more it looks messy, the delay you will in fact do in analyzing it. So here we can see something has been done, some write text. We can see very few things which are quite clear. So we can see some common keywords in between. I mean, some common patterns. We can always try to replace them. We will definitely do this in our next video because as of now, the sample is quite huge. So it's taking some time to load and it will take a lot of time. So we'll have to make it easier for us. Meanwhile, just keep scrolling down and see if anything is there that makes sense to us. So eval and function, they have used these W script arguments for each operator in array this. So they are using something, they're using loop. It seems maybe they are using some ASCII values of the characters, which we have seen previously as well. There's a possibility that they are doing that. It again looks like it's a file name. Sorry. Yes, I missed it. Yeah, here. So it looks like it's a file name over here. So we'll analyze them all, save to file. So something is getting saved to this file. So we have slightly understood how deobfuscation, the technique of deobfuscation works, how we are going to, deobfuscate them manually. The tools based approach will be doing it later on, but for now let's understand how the actual analysis happens so that we can understand how everything is happening. Tools are there to make it easy. Of course we cannot do each and everything manually, but of course we have to understand how things happen, how we are analyzing the code, because this is also one part which will be very useful for us later on while analyzing malicious samples. So that's it for today. We are going to analyze these samples one by one in our upcoming videos. So stay tuned. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel CryptoWare, and see you in the next video. Bye.